What's up, ladies and gentlemen? The name of the show is Politics on My Mind, and I'm the host, Troy Griffith. Let's get the show started. It's going to be a good one.
All of you know who I am.
Yo, what's poppin', ladies and gentlemen? You're tuned into Politics on My Mind. I am the host, Troy Griffith. This is episode 190. If you would like to listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, you can do so on SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube, iTunes. Just go into that search bar, type in Politics on My Mind. You can hit the podcast up on Twitter. That's POMM podcast. And once again, that's on the Bluebird Twitter. Today is Monday, November 23rd, 2020. And I would like to welcome you to the only political podcast for the hip hop generation. As always, I have to tell you about the website, politicsonmymind.com. You heard me. That was a S. politicsonmymind.com. And before we get started, well, we already started, but I just want to say, we all know the holiday is coming up. Thursday's a holiday, right? Today's Monday, November 23rd. This coming 2020, this coming Thursday is a holiday. So guess what? I'm not going to try to be eating my food and then trying to put a podcast together for next week, Monday, which is November 30th. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to tell you right now, there will be no episode next week, November 30th. I'm going to get it out the gate right now, right? I'm not going to try to rush because I'm not kidding. Up until I hit that record button, I literally, when people use literally, you'd be like, literally, I had an entire list going. And I finally had to say, yo, I have to start the podcast. I was coming up with so much stuff. I was like, I need to just get started and get the podcast going. So that's it. Check the boxes. Nope. No episode next week. I want to wish all of you a safe holiday. You notice I'm not saying the name of the holiday. That's purpose. I want to wish all of you a safe holiday. If there's anything that you do this holiday, like no other time before, right? I know we say that a lot of times, but this time it really means it, yo. Think of the people who are less fortunate. And if there's anything you can do, I mean anything, if you could just, I don't know, if you have the resources and you could just spend a couple dollars and just, hand out food, spend a couple dollars, hand out socks to the less fortunate, spend a couple dollars and, I wanted to say handout, but, what I'm trying to say is this: spend a couple dollars on organizations that do this type of work, that hand out, whether it's $1, $2, trust me, to you, it may seem like, why would I waste my time and give $1? But that will make a difference. If 1,000 people give $1, guess how much you have? You passed third grade math. Congratulations, right? Or if you don't have the resources, you don't have the physical, you don't have the money to do so, and you feel like, you know what, I could cook up a meal in my house for less than I will go out and pay. And, you just hand it out, do so safely, think of others like no other time before, y'all. I truly mean it, like no other time before. Think of the people who are less fortunate. If you're able to sit in a warm home, especially this time, we know that members of Congress, mid-December, it will be, the loans, the eviction moratorium that was put on hold during the pandemic, a lot of it is going to go away after the next month's holiday. So, just think of people. If you're able to sit in a warm home, drive a car, have a job, just think of the many people who are losing their job and what you can do to make a difference like no other time before, y'all. Just do that. Just think about that. You understand? Just look at it that way. For those of you who may wonder, why are you telling us what to do? What are you going to do? I do my part. I'm in them streets. You know what I mean? Like physically in them streets. Like when I say physically, I'm in them streets. It's funny that when you get into activism, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be urging a politician or elected official to do something. It could be like just out in them streets, getting people out to vote, feeding the less fortunate, whatever the case may be. People always come to your ear and be like, you're going to run for office. And that's not, if you truly about activism, because there are some people I be around, I'd be like, you just doing this because you're going to run for office in 2 months, right? But if you're truly doing it for the love of your community, you don't think about that. So do it for the love of your community. Think about your neighbors that's going around. And obviously, we're in a pandemic. It's still surging. People are dying, like literally. I believe I saw a number that said 1,000 people a day. I want you to think about that. That's a 9/11. No, that's like a 9/11 every week. You know what I mean? Like in 9/11, almost 3,000 people died in those towers, right? And if 1,000 people are dying a day, like, is it because we're not seeing it where, but instead of me going through all of that, it's failure of leadership. That's all it is, right? White America decided that majority of white America, specifically white women, decided that how they wanted a pussy grabber, and they elected him. They wanted a racist. They elected him. They wanted someone who was, wannabe dictator. They elected him. So here we are. Because of that failure, we showed up and we saved us. Black, brown, Native Americans, we showed up. And, with the Joe Biden administration coming in, hopefully we'll get, a grip on this. Look, Joe Biden is not going to come in and, just snap of a finger, stop the coronavirus, but the leadership will be different. As in, I'm talking about the coronavirus, wear your mask, wash your hands, right? My rule is that, when I'm speaking with my coworkers and they be like, be safe out there. My rule is this, my hands, the thing with my fingers on it, doesn't come above my elbow. Like, I don't raise my hand to itch I might be out there, my nose is itching, that motherfucker just gonna have to itch. You see what I'm saying? It's just gonna be like, nah, you're just gonna itch, bro, because I'm not about to touch my nose, right? Just follow those rules. Wash your hand, wear your mask. I'm so dedicated to the mask thing, right, that I got it online, but I purchased the Wu-Tang Clan mask, right? And it's the dopest shit ever. I'm just going to say that, right? It's like, woo, you know what I mean? Like, it's Wu-Tang. Oh, baby, I can rock, right? So, I purchased that. It took a month to get here, a whole month. I want to feel like it has something to do with the pandemic, but then again, I was like, they don't have a website. Like, I couldn't email them. I couldn't call them. I kind of want my money back. It's like, now I want a refund. Why did it take a whole month for this thing to come? Although I love Wu-Tang, it's like I still need customer service in my life. You know what I'm saying? Wear your mask. If there's anything I can tell you, wear your mask. I can't pound this enough. I'm going to end the episode with it. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. I was going to say wash your face, but do that too, because you never know. You know what I mean? That's it. And, with the pandemic, there's trash leadership all around. And I remember doing 9/11, and that's trash leadership, 9/11, George W. Bush, put all that shit together. Stick with me, y'all. I'm coming full force. I'm not all over the place this episode. I know where I'm going. Stick with me, right? But, speaking of 9/11 and trash leadership, because George W. Bush, the Clinton administration came in and told them about these threats. He ignored it and 9/11 happened, right? But where I'm going with this is there's trash leadership all around, right? And for too long, I remember growing up and being told you got to be twice as good because you're a black kid in America. You got to work twice as hard because you're a black kid in America. And too often you look around, like you can look at Donald Trump and see he failed at life, right? It's only whiteness that saved him, right? Could you imagine Donald Trump being black or brown and, and ascended to the presidency? It would not have happened, right? But whiteness saved this man, right? So the point I'm trying to say with this, you have leaderships at all level, and that leadership goes into corporations because you have people like corporation Tyson Food. If you haven't heard about these people, let me tell you how trash they are, in my opinion. Check this out. There's an article over at, I'm not kidding, I had like 1,000 articles to talk about, over at IowaCapitalDispatch.com. The title of the article is Lawsuit Tyson managers bet money on how many workers will contract COVID-19. And when I saw this, I was like, wait, is this Tyson's food, like the chicken people? And I was like, wait, do I buy anything from them? No, right? Shouldn't. They're trash. And this is in Iowa, where majority of the people at their plants are black people, right? No, wait. Yeah, black people and brown people, right? So there's Latinos and there's black people, right? So we should give a fuck about this. So check this out. There's a wrongful death lawsuit tied to COVID-19 infections in a Waterloo pork processing plant, alleging that during the initial stage of the pandemic, Tyson Food ordered employees to report for work while supervisors privately wagered money on the number of workers who would be sickened by the deadly virus. You heard me right. There were supervisors at this plant who were making bets on the number of workers who would be sickened by the coronavirus, right? So in my head, I said, let me go to Twitter and see how many people are trashing this corporation. And what they did was on their Twitter, Tyson Food Twitter, what they did was they blocked the comments. You can't leave comments. Right then and there, I said, look at these guilty motherfuckers, right? Like they know they're trash. They know they have no value for their workers and they don't want to hear about it. Then I did the best next thing. I said, let me Google this corporation. And it came up and then I said to myself, I said, who is the CEO of this corporation? And it's Noel White, Noel, Noel White. And I said, the next thing to myself, I said, let me Google image this individual. I'll let y'all guess his race. You know what I mean? And I laugh because trash is allowed through and through for these people that just devalue black and brown lives. And meanwhile, you got some little black kid coming up, doing their best and being told you need to be twice as good. Twice as good as who? Noel White? That would, during the pandemic, and this is, this story is all the way true because I remember at the top of the pandemic, they were opening back up even though the cases were going up, right? And they were lobbying. According to this article, they were lobbying. Tyson executives allegedly lobbied Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds for COVID-19 liability protections that would shield the company from lawsuits. So basically, they were telling the governor, go ahead and execute an order that would say that the workers can't sue us if they contract coronavirus. How trash are you? To me, that's admitting guilt that we can't contain it. We have no plan, right? And then they paid $500, quote unquote, thank you bonuses to employees who would turn up for every scheduled shift for 3 months. Let me tell you something. $500 bonus. Let me tell you something. I sound like Fire Marshal Bill. I was playing Call of Duty and one of the dudes that I play with, we was talking about Joe Biden, but I felt like underneath that, there was a little bit of, he was a Trumper on the low. And somehow Joe Biden came up and he was like, oh, he looks like Fire Marshal Bill. I was like, yo, that's funny. But then I thought to myself, why would you say that? You know what I mean? But anyway, so let me tell you something about $500. What did Fire Marshal Bill have to do with that? Fire Marshal Bill used to say, let me tell you something, right? In Living Color? No? Nothing? You don't remember? All right, anyway. So let me tell you something about $500 bonuses, right? It sounds good. Every shift you show up for, I'm going to give you $500. Sounds great, right? But here's the thing. How does that show up? Does that show up in my check, my regular check? I doubt it. It's going to show up in a separate check, which is going to be taxed, which sounds great, right? It sounds awesome. You're like, yes, until it gets taxed. Then it sounds, okay, then you're like, maybe not. Okay, how do you define every shift, right? So how is the shifts counted? Is it counted per week? Hey, this is, right? So is it counted if I work 5 days a week, 5 times 500? No, right? I doubt it's going to work like that. It'll probably be like, oh, it's every shift within the pay period, right? And the pay period counts as one shift. Trust me, they'll all play that. So it sounds good. 3 months, I get $1,500. Then it shows up and then you get taxed. It sounds good, right? I see through this. But I just wanted to bring the attention of stop telling little young black boy and girls that they have to be twice as nice as anything. What you should be telling them is, you're great, do your best to succeed, and, follow through. Don't quit. I remember Nipsey Hussle, he gave an interview one time, the Marathon Continued, shout out. And, they were asking him like, yo, how'd you did it? He said, yo, I did nothing different than anyone else. Or is it differently? I did nothing differently than anyone else. I just never stopped. I never quit. I kept going. That's what you should tell them. Stop telling them, because you're black. No. You're dismissing racism. You let them know that racism exists in this country, and you do your best, and you do your best. Don't look at anyone else's, right? You run in your lane. Don't look over to no one else's lane. You run the best race you can. And I just wanted to say that, intertwined coronavirus, privilege, white privilege, and then the devaluing of black and brown communities by trash ass people who either become president or CEO of corporations, which I would argue probably granddaddy was started the business and whatever. You know what I mean? I just wanted to get off on that, but my bad. You know what I mean? I just had to bring that up. I could lighten it up a little bit, which would be super easy. Let's talk about the verses, right? It was between two Atlanta rappers. Let me just say, spent a lot of time in Georgia, so I know about that culture. I remember being out there, 5 Points Atlanta. It was a culture shock coming from New York. It really was, but great city. If you ever have the opportunity, you've never been to Georgia, go visit Georgia. Notice I'm not saying go to Atlanta. It's a whole big ass state. It's more than Georgia's more than Atlanta. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. But two rappers. You got Gucci Man, real name Radrick Davis, and then you got Jeezy, real name J. Wayne Jenkins, right? They had a versus battle. I didn't look at it, but it came on I didn't watch it because it came on my radar because Stacey Abrams showed up. And I was like, yo, this is awesome. So I had to go check it out because, anytime the world of politics and hip hop collide, it's why I started this podcast, right? The only political podcast for the hip hop generation. So when I saw Stacey Abrams showed up, I was like, this is awesome. I like this. Like, why didn't I catch this the first time? Maybe it wasn't for me. You know what I mean? But I wanted to go ahead and just play, why she showed up and, just go into that just a little bit more. So here is, without further ado, Stacey Abrams showing up at the verses between Jeezy and Gucci Man, two rappers from Atlanta. Here goes.
Hi, this is Stacey Abrams.
How you doing, Stacey? What's going on, Stacey?
What's that, Miss Stacey? How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you guys for letting me crash before what I know is the battle to end all battles, the verses to end all verses. So thank you for giving me some street cred with my nieces and nephews.
That's right.
Can you wipe my record clean?
Look, that's a job that the governor could do, but we'll have to think about that later. But for right now, we can at least make sure that everyone shows up to vote. So we have 2 senators to make sure we have COVID response and we've got stimulus money coming back to Georgia. Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to both of you, especially for the work you've done to encourage folks who are coming back, returning citizens, to know they have the right to vote. I've got a younger brother who's been in and out of the system, and I know redemption is real, and I know that the voices that these men and women can bring to our state matter. And so thank you for the work you've done.
So to the important stuff first, right? There is a runoff election in Georgia. And if you live in Georgia, anyone in Georgia, a friend, a foe, you know what I mean? If it's safe to do so, reach out to them and say, yo, there's a runoff election in Georgia on January 5th, 2020. December 14th is when you can start requesting absentee ballots. I believe that's the last day you can start requesting. I'm going to get the exact date for you when you can start, because I wasn't so sure. So I'll get the exact dates for you. That race is to allow the Democratic Party to get a majority in the Senate, right? That majority in the Senate will give them the opportunity. So it will be 50-50. So that means there will be 50 Democratic senators and 50 Republican senators. So now you're thinking to yourself, that's not a majority. Kamala Harris being the vice president, she will be the tiebreaker, right? So anytime the Democratic Party has a bill up, they, and they don't have, and they have 50 Democrats, but they need a majority, Kamala Harris will come in and she will be the tiebreaker. So how does that get done? That gets done by electing the 2 Democratic senators that are running for that seat. John Ossoff, he's running for his seat, a seat that's up for, as a matter of fact, both of their seats are up, which is very rare that 2 Senate seats are up. But one of the women running, a Republican woman, Kelly Loeffler, she's a racist. She's an alleged inside trader. And also David Perdue, him as well. That's who John Ossoff is running against. He's an alleged inside trader. So you have Raphael Warnock. He's running to unseat Kelly Loeffler, who was appointed by the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, who actually stole the election from Stacey Abrams. So this is all coming together, right? So that's how you do that. She's alleged to inside trade. There was an FBI investigation to her inside trading. Her husband donated $1 million to the Trump campaign in Vamoose. Wow, look, what was that? Where's that insider trading investigation? It just disappeared. It disappeared as well for David Perdue, I believe. You have until December 14th to request the mail-in ballot. So you have to come back and do this all over again if you live in Georgia, right? You have to come back, request the absentee ballot, do so immediately. Waste no time if you're listening to Georgia. If you know someone in Georgia, let them know. They have to do it because the runoff is on January 5th. And why it went to a runoff is because Georgia have this relic of Jim Crow, relic of post Reconstruction, where they didn't believe that newly freed slaves had the right. So it's like, all of y'all can't show up and vote for this one person. So you need 51%. I hate when they say 50 plus 1. Just say 51. You need a majority. You need 51%, or you need 50%, or you need 51%. None of the candidates, reached that threshold. So it went to a runoff, and that's how that go. Now to the fun stuff. If you noticed when Stacey Abrams, you could go back and listen to that clip. When Stacey Abrams introduced herself, Jeezy said, "What's up, Stacey?" And as gangsta as Gucci Man makes himself out to be, he said, "Hey, Miss Stacey." He didn't forget his country roots, which by the far, it shocked me because I was like, wait, this hood dude just say Miss Stacey, because it goes to show. You may be the hoodest dude on the block, but you still got to respect. Look, I grew up with some dudes that was, they'll slap you for looking at them wrong. But I really think that's like a New York thing, where I remember growing up, people used to be like, yo, what the fuck you looking at? And I'm like, dog, really? You're going to get mad at somebody because they're looking at you? Look away from them. But anyway, it might be a city thing where you just like, you always feel like being threatened and shit. But anyway, he still had that respect. It shows he was brought up properly, right? Which I didn't think otherwise, but there's a saying that goes, you make children, you don't make their brain, right? So you can teach them all you want. They're going to do what they want to do when they become adults. With that said, if you notice, Gucci is ignorant as well too. Check this out. Check how ignorant he is. She introduced herself, and then he said, "Can you clear my record?" Right? Meaning his criminal record. And it was... He's so ignorant. Yo, it was hilarious. But she didn't dismiss it. She came back and said, that's a job for the governor, which we can discuss at a later time. Meaning, I'm running for that seat again that got stolen from me. But in the meantime, I need to do the work. And she said to him, if you listened, she said to him, help me elect. She didn't say their names, but I'll say their names and put it in. Help me elect Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, turn Georgia blue, and then I can do those things. And then The same thing that Gucci Mane asked her, if you can clear my record, she went on to talk about. She said to both of them, thank you for what you do with returning citizens. And that means, recently released from prison. And guess who was one of those people? Gucci Mane. And guess what he asked her for? He had no clue that's where she was going. But you see how she intertwined it? She didn't show up there like, yo, yeah, I smoked weed back in the day. Yeah, your first album was my... She showed up, you know what I mean? Like, yo, what's that saying off of Jay-Z's album where he said, you was who you are before you got here, right? I don't need to act like I'm you. You don't need to act like you're me, right? We could equally respect each other for who you are. And just a little sidebar where I got this from. I got to give credit. Recently, Fredro Starr was on, I guess, a podcast or something. He was talking about Royce the 5'9". And, and he was like, yo, Fredro Starr, he's from Onyx. And he said, this is the only political podcast for the hip hop generation. So I'm going to tie hip hop into it, right? And he said, Fredro Starr said about Royce the 5'9". If you don't know who Royce the 5'9" is and you listen to rap, be very disappointed in yourself. But if you don't know, just go just type in Royce the 5'9", bar exam, and listen to any song that comes on. You'll be delighted. But anyway, Fredro Starr said that Royce the 5'9" was a nerd rapper. And he said he's a nerd rapper because, he sound like he read books. And I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And Royce the 5'9" made a video responding to it. And he basically said, fuck you, without saying fuck you. It's the nicest way I've ever heard. And it's the nicest way I ever heard someone say fuck you. You know what I mean? Like a long fuck you. It was like, fuck, you right? It was like that, but in the most intelligent way. And he kind of fed into the thing like, yo, you knocking me because I'm intelligent? And I thought it was the weirdest shit. Like, yo, Fredro Starr, you don't know what you're talking about. But it was Royce the 5'9" saying to Fredro Starr, yo, man, don't come at me like that. I don't play with you. Don't play with me. So show up as who you are, and I'm going to show up as who I am, and let's respect each other. And seeing Stacey Abrams made me thought about that, where she was like, hey, what's up? It's Stacey. She didn't come in there like, yo, what up? You know what I mean? She just showed up, thanked them, asked them for their help. And guess what? Thousands of people, including Georgians, showed up and watched their verses. So she was tapping into an audience that otherwise won't be tapped into what she's doing. She's doing the work. New Georgia Project, Fair Fight, all that good stuff, right? But I'll go. Can I move on? I'll go on to the next thing. I know I have a lot of stuff to talk about, and I don't want to forget anything because I really took my time coming up with this. And I'm going to talk about I want to talk about this. I saw this. I can't remember where I saw this, but where I read this, but I'm going to talk about it. That this article is over at the Courant.com, COURANT.com, and it's a Hartford Courant, right? And the title of this article is Army Will Consider Upgrading Less Than Honorable Discharges and Expanding Access to Veterans Benefits. Thousands of vets could be affected. It's written by Edmund Mahoney, and it was written on November 18th. And what this is, a lawsuit was brought against the Army by the Yale. It was a settlement. They reached a settlement brought by the Yale Law School Veterans Legal Services Clinic. And what this was, the settlement says that the Army now have to upgrade the less than honorable discharges. And at first I was like, what? But here's what happened. Sometimes when I never was in the military, I'm not a veteran or anything, but sometimes when you leave the military, you get an honorable discharge. But if you get anything less than an honorable discharge, it affects the GI Bill. It affects the benefits you get, particularly your health benefits, the GI Bill where you could go buy a home, buy a car, take advantage of all the benefits that you would have as a veteran. And what the Army was doing was giving people less than honorable discharges, so they did not have to, this is how I'm going to interpret it, that they did not have to pay out those benefits, right? And just a little bit of history in between there, when you see stuff like the GI Bill and the Army using those tactics, I guarantee you, if you dug into it, this article did not go into it, but if you really dug deep into it, you will find out that majority of those people who received less than honorable discharges were either black or brown. No, black and brown, not or. They were black and brown, right? So And also the GI Bill, at first, black veterans were excluded from it. Vietnam veterans, the black people who came home, didn't get those benefits, right? And the GI Bill gives you that opportunity to financially ascend, right? Like being able to build generational quote unquote wealth. I hate that when they say that, like, what the fuck? I'm not going to buy a house and become Warren Buffett. No, being able to pass on some sort of, property. Let's say that, not generational wealth, being able to pass on property through generations, right? So when the Army was doing that, they really was just trying to exclude black and brown people from obtaining those benefits. And in reading this article, no knock, I respect the work that they do, but I remember I used to listen to this show that used to have Paul Rykoff. I believe he was the head of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, IAVA, and they will always talk about just, I'll say this, I was trying to mince my word, but I'll say this. A lot of times when they show veterans, when they show soldiers, it's always a white male, right? They rarely ever focus on black and brown people, Native Americans. They really rarely ever focus on them. And, I'm happy for this because this probably means that a lot of black and brown people who was, left out of these benefits will now be able to get it. And if they're not alive, maybe their loved ones will be able to get it. And I'm just happy to see this. And it's really awesome news. Something else. What else I want to talk about? All right, I did see that earlier this week you had people from the tech industry. They showed up and testified before Congress. One of the most interesting things to me was technically, I think all these people are just taking advantage of it's a no holds bar. Like they really don't have any rules, so they're allowed to do what they want, right? But specifically, one that stood out to me was the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. He basically said that when the current president right now, not the president-elect Joe Biden, but when the current president leaves office, the reckless language and the reckless behavior that he has on Twitter, he will no longer have the protection of the office. He'll be regular me or you on Twitter. So he could either be banned, suspended. I highly doubt it. Back to the top of our conversation about white privilege, but it's hope that this man can stop his racist attacks on people, is his disturbing national security. And I don't know how that fit in, but I just wanted to mention it. Here's something that most of the people who probably listen to this podcast will be interested in. I just want to preface this by saying that I'm not holding out my breath for this to happen, but I feel like it's doable, right? And I feel like they've been saying it forever, but will they do it? So earlier this week, I was reading an article. I came across the article, on your iPhone when when you swipe from the home screen and those articles come up, right? They come up and half the time you're like, oh man, what the hell? I didn't do that. What's this? And then, article may catch your eye. Is it when we swipe? Those news articles, man. I don't know, like the quick news articles. Anyway, one came up and one of them was this article. One of them was this article. And I was like, let me read this. So one of the article was the Wall Street Journal, The Future of Everything. Is this the end of college as we know it? And it basically went on to talk about this woman who went to college, got a PhD in clinical psychology, and she has 33 years old, 94,000 in student loans, right? And she carries, guess how much, y'all? Guess. I'm going to give you a guess. You get one guess. How much you think it is? Say it right now. Now. Nope. It's $300,000 in debt, right? But her husband, he works in a warehouse, and he's right now he's an apprentice electrician, and when he comes out of college, he may be making as much as her without the debt, right? And I was like, what the fuck? So this caught my eye. So there's that article, right, over at the Wall Street Journal. And then literally a couple days later, Chuck Schumer, who's the Senate minority leader, I saw an article over at CNBC.com This is their Make It edition. Title of this article is Chuck Schumer says Biden could forgive $50,000 in student debt with executive order. And I'm not going to bore you with it, but he was talking to Anand Gerdans. Great, by the way, great economic guy. I tried to read this book, but oh man, that thing was tense. I was like, my brain is not following this shit. I tried. It was like economics. I tried. My brain was hurting. So anyway, somebody out there is like, why don't you get the audiobook? I'm old school. I need it in my hand. Chill out. Anyway, so look, right? So Chuck Schumer was telling Anand Geradas that, President-elect Joe Biden, he should issue a significant student loan forgiveness a significant student loan forgiveness through an executive order. And he could do it like within his first 100 days. And he goes on to say, this is Chuck Schumer, I have a proposal with Elizabeth Warren that the first $50,000 of debt be vanquished. And we believe that Joe Biden can do that with the pen as opposed to legislation. Unquote. Here's my problem with that, right? It gets me when people say stuff like that. When they say, like, you could have just used the word, right? Like when he said vanquished, I was like, why not just be like forgiven, wiped out? Why he had to go for the vanquished, right? I remember one day somebody used the word incontrovertible, right? I think I'm saying it right. And I was like, why you just didn't say what you meant? Like, you ever like listen to someone and they use let's use the word big, right? They use the big word and you're like, the person was like, I'm like, it was actually the first 2 years into this current president's term, and one of a former cabinet person was saying something like, and I was just like, why just not say not able to be denied or disputed, or it's not disputed? It's like, it was just like ring around the fucking posy, right? And I'm like, damn, Chuck Schumer, why didn't you just say it? Like, are you scared? Did you use that word because you felt like, your Republican people will come along and be like, yo, why did you say that? Why, you know what I mean? Like, defeat. Like, why you just didn't say we can defeat student debt? Like, this is my opinion. Maybe I'm not understanding the word vanquished, but I almost feel like he used it wrong. But anyway, that was my little tirade, right? So here's what I think about this student loan thing. I remember one time I heard somebody in their early 40s say, they've been saying this since I was in my 20s in college. And I remember I froze. I was like, wait, I thought this was a new discussion. Like, student loan debt has been being talked about for 20 years. And I feel like they keep playing with college people's feelings with this student loan thing. And mind you, I said college people, I didn't use the term millennials because you have grandparents who take out student loans for kids, their grandkids, or parents who take out student loans so their kids could go to college, right? So they might be sitting on the parent student loan. I forgot what they call it. It's a term for like when your parents take out student loans, right? So for me, I'm almost like, stop playing with our feelings. Are you going to do it? And if you're not going to do it, just shut the fuck up about it, right? Because student loan is something that, after you graduate college and you look back and you start paying that shit, you like picture me right now putting my hand in my palms and be like, what the fuck did I do? This was the dumbest shit ever. Like, why would I take something out, get the benefits of it right now, and then 20 years removed, I'm still paying for it? That's like, that. You know what? That's like, owning a car for 5 years, right? Say like, boom, you drive the car around. You don't have to ever pay a car note. You drive it around, you enjoy it. Excuse me, I hit the mic. You drive the car around, you enjoy it. You got the best of the car for 5 years. And now you finish with the car, right? It's not running no more. You turn the car in, and then they say, oh, now you have to pay us that car note every month for 5 years, 60 months, 66 months, 72 months, however they do it, right? However you do it with your car loan. And that's how I look at student loans. It's like, look, man, either y'all gonna get it done or not. Here's my thing. Politically speaking, because we know black people are disproportionately affected. Somebody's listening like, he's always talking about black people. I'm black, sir. Step back, right? So Black people are disproportionately affected by student loans. They weighed down more by it. Specifically, black women are definitely weighed down more because there's this narrative out there, and I'm not saying it that way, saying that it's right, true or false, but I haven't really seen any concrete evidence, but I've heard it repeated and I've seen it in articles that black women are one of the most educated groups. So therefore, that would only lend to the ideology that how they are disproportionately also affected by student loans, right? So what am I saying there? If you forgive student loans, especially for a number of $50,000 of student loan debt, you allow people who otherwise could not go buy a home, who otherwise could not start a family, who otherwise could not pursue a business, right? Now you gave us the option of purchasing healthcare because that shit wasn't free, right? Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, that comes out of people's pocket. That shit isn't free, right? So now you give entrepreneurs that spirit to go out and say, oh, I can start a business. I don't have to worry about healthcare. And now there's someone sitting at a job only there. And I know them personally. I know people who just at a job because they're like, yo, if I didn't have this student loan, some of them, they may be just talking shit. You know those people you work with, they be like, yeah, man, yo, no bullshit. Check this out. I know I'm jumping off topic real quick, but just real quick. I had somebody hit me up from my old job via email. And I reached out to one of my old coworkers and I was like, yo, this name ring a bell. How she look? And they told me. And I was like, oh, the name didn't hit me because I remember before I left that job 2.5 years ago, she told me she was looking for a job and she's going to be out of there. Then my former coworker said to me, yeah, she always saying that shit. You know, I was like, I thought she always only told me that. She was like, nah, she say it all the time. Every time we talk, she say that. But anyway, where was I going with this? Yeah, you have people sitting at the job who will be like, yo, I can finally leave, go start up my own business. I don't have to worry about paying back a student loan anymore. I'm free of that debt. I don't have to worry about keeping the job for healthcare. So you do a real justice to people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to do these things before. And obviously, I have to attack the naysayers, and I'm going to use the word attack purposely. Somebody's sitting out there saying, what about me? I pay mine off. Why did it? Let me tell you something. Let me go through a couple things. You own a home? Guess what? You get a mortgage tax credit, right? You get that credit. Guess where that credit come from? That shit ain't free, motherfucker. That's taxpayers' money. I didn't see you complaining when you was getting that. I didn't see you saying, oh, you know what? Nah, I'm good. I didn't see you do that. Were you always getting the earned income tax credit? I doubt it. You didn't come out of school making, $150,000. Some people are that lucky. Shout out to, a family friend that dude came out of school making 6 figures. I'm just saying. Yeah. Shout out RIP, bro. So look, here's the thing, right? You weren't always making $100,000, $200,000, whatever the case may be. At some point, you was making $20,000. You was getting an earned income tax credit. I didn't see you complaining about that shit, right? That's how that works, right? So calm down with the handout bullshit. So I just want to talk about that for the people who are listening there for the people who are listening out there with student loans. Be you a parent or you were a student. I don't know why I'm going to talk about this, but I just want to tell you about it that, I'm not going to say I don't know why. Of course I know why I was talking about it. Of course. President Obama, he did an MSNBC special, and earlier this week, I watched the entire thing. It was awesome. It was awesome to see him, just articulate, his experience in the White House. And there were 2 young men there and a superintendent from Yonkers. I can't remember their name. And President Obama did the special to talk about his book. And it's a 2-part series book. The first book is 700 pages. Oh my goodness. I know for one thing, I'm not reading that book until I read his first book. Because I always said, I have to read his first book because I want to get the before and the after, but I'll be super quick with this. Tell you about this book. It's called The Promised Land. It's by Barack Obama. It's a 2-part book. The first book is out now. Once again, A Promised Land by Barack Obama. The first book is out now, 700 pages. Over 700 pages, and the second book will probably be out at a later time. I figure he'd probably wait a year, give you a year to read the book, then he'd come out with the other one. But I just wanted to mention that. Let me tell you about speaking of that and talking about where the Democratic Party is going, right? So I was going to play this clip. I have the clip ready. I'm not going to do it, but I'll say this. I'm going to say this quickly, and I'm just checking to make sure that there's nothing I'm leaving out. Okay, yeah. Okay, I have all this. Okay, cool. Okay, so the Democratic Party is changing. I'm going to start with this. You have Stacey Abrams, who is on the ground. I can't talk about Stacey Abrams enough. New Georgia Project, fair fight. Look her up, right? She ran for governor. She was a leader of the House in Georgia House, right? Georgia State House, excuse me. So she knows what she's doing. She's doing the ground game. She's helping the Democratic Party get their shit together and focus on non-voters, the people who do not show, either they register to vote, but they don't show up to vote, right? Or either they're not registered because they're just so disengaged because no one engages them. I'm not going to say any names, but I'm not going to say that. I was going to give a hint, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? I hate when people do that when I'm listening to shit, but I now know why, being that, you're in circles. But anyway, I remember one time this dude was running for office. Maybe it's like 2-3 years ago. And I remember being in an event with him, strictly political. You know what I mean? I know I said it earlier. He showed up at who he is, but he's a nerd. I'll tell him to his face because I'm about that shit. You know what I mean? I'm not only in them streets. I am the street. No, let me stop. I'll be trying. Sometimes the Brooklyn comes out. But nah, he's a nerd. Look. So check this out, right? I remember having a conversation with him. I was like, yo, you running for office? What you running for? He told me what he was running for. And I said, yo, what's your plan? All right, he looked at me. He was like, yeah, man, I'm just going to go knock on doors. I was like, yo, you should talk to young people. You know what I mean? Because nobody engages with young people. So, it would be cool if you go talk to them, knock on their door and get them out. And he was like, yeah, but they don't vote, though. So I'm just going to focus on the older residents. And I remember thinking to myself, what? And then I said to him, I was like, yo, but if no one ever engages them, when will they come out? And he said, yeah, but I can't change that, so I'm just going to focus on the older residents, right? Meaning like 60, 70, 80. Because when I volunteer on campaigns and I look at that role and I go knock on people's doors, I always look at their age. And, campaigns focus a lot. They focus a lot on 60 and over. And I would even argue when I say 60, it's really like late 60s and over, because those are consistent voters in any age, in any race, right? But obviously black people have shown up a lot more. But in any across racial lines, that age group shows up a lot more, right? But then he lost his race. And I thought to myself, like, had that been his strategy, right? So when you're running for office, you can't say to yourself, oh, I'm going to run for office. You have to lay a ground game. What's going to be your ground game? And coming back to Stacey Abrams, her ground game is this: non-voters, right? So when Georgia came back blue for President-elect Joe Biden, it was because of Stacey Abrams and other organizations' ground game. And she's saying right here, with the Senate runoff on January 5th for Georgia Senate, the 2 Senate seats with John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, she's saying, let's continue to focus on those people. Let's get them out. She tweeted from her account that as of earlier this month, 600,000 Georgia residents have requested absentee ballots to vote in a runoff. A high number, I would argue, for a runoff. A very high number, right? They say that, runoffs, those numbers drop from like 40 to 60%, right? So here's the thing. You have new people coming into the party. I was going to play the clip, but I'm not. You have Representative Jim Clyburn. 2 things can be true with him, right? Jedi for even pushing Joe Biden and saying back in February of this year and saying he's going to vote for Joe Biden. Older black people in South Carolina heard that. And when I say older, I mean late 60s and over, heard that. And they handed Joe Biden the nomination, right? And that's why Joe Biden pounded on that podium and said, I will never forget it to black people, right? So now you have you have new guards coming into the party, and they're going to feel a lot different because they feel like shit that's been happening hasn't been working. So now they're saying to themselves, this is how we want it done. And I think a lot of times as you age in life, you forget how much of a firebrand you were. And I'm going to connect this to Jim Clyburn in a second. He's the representative from South Carolina, right? So you forget how firebrand you are, and don't extend the olive branch both ways. Nobody's saying pass the torch. No, you're not saying that at all. You're just saying open the olive branch like, yo, I get your firebrand. Anything I can do to help you, but understand their roadblocks. Jim Clyburn being representative from South Carolina's 6th district, right? I believe he's been in that seat almost 30 years, right? Now you have Cori Bush, who's a newly elected congresswoman, the first African-American congresswoman elected to, the first African-American woman elected, black woman elected to Congress, right? So she's hailing out of Missouri's 1st district, and she unseat a Clay dynasty. Just look that up, Clay dynasty, right? She completely unseated them. So she comes in now, and she's challenging the party. And she's telling the party, yo, along with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Janet Haynes. All of these people are telling the Democratic Party, the people who are in the way, what's that Tupac line where he said in the song Changes? The old way wasn't working, now it's on us. So Cori Bush, I was listening to a podcast, Torre from back in the day, and you should check it out. It was actually a great interview. I don't listen to podcasts much, but that came across my wave, and I was like, all right, I'm on this. And she's basically breaking down and said, these are the things that I'm going for. And one of the things that she said that stuck out to me, and some of y'all might be surprised what she said. And they asked, Torre asked her, he said, what are you going to do when you go to Congress? You have people like Nancy Pelosi, and they're going to be in your way. She said, I paraphrase, this is what I'm fighting for. And this is the part that I love that she said, I'm not going there to be friends with anyone. And I was like, yes, because politicians have this thing of like, oh, my friend from the aisle. Shut the fuck up. They're not friends. Y'all barely know each other. I remember, quick story, when Jim Jordan, you should look him up on Twitter, Jim Jordan. His name is spelled Jim, but on Twitter, they roast him as Jim Jordan, Gym. Look it up and you'll find out why. But anyway, I remember when Jim Jordan, he was accused of being racist, and the late, great Elijah Cummings, he basically said to Elijah Cummings, like, yo, we hang together, right? Like, you're black. Not in this way, but it was the whole, white people, they're like, yo, you're black, and we hang together. I'm not racist, right? You know what I mean? It was the weirdest thing. But anyway, right, she was like, I'm not going there to be anybody's friend. I have a mission, and my mission, I'm paraphrasing all of this. My mission is to get the job done for my community, right? The unhoused, those people, the people that, don't have health care, the people that don't have a job, the people that have a job that's not paying them the wage they need to survive, right? Loved it. So there's all of that, right? So I want to come at this with numbers. And according to this article over at, I'll find it for you. According to this article, over at thegrio.com, this article is titled, "The Power of Black Voters is not to be ignored ever again." And it's talking about the way that black voters are showing up. And I would argue that with this article, I'll read this. Part of the article says, for instance, Biden only won the state of Georgia by about 14,000 votes. With lower black turnout, Trump easily wins the state. It is important to remember that a number of experts actually expected black turnout to fall for Trump to make major gains, particularly with young black voters. Instead, the opposite happened. And it goes on to say, despite the obstacles in front of them, black voters were instrumental in making Trump a one-term president. So here's the thing. She understands that black people are showing up, for the Democratic Party. And they don't want soft. They don't want soft with the T capitalized, soft things done. They want the necessary things done. And it's a double whammy there, right? According to this article over at thehill.com, record number of black women elected to Congress in 2020. Cori Bush is one of them. Go through the list. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, she was reelected, right? As of this write-in, Stacey Plaskett in the Virgin Islands, her race hasn't been called, but I'll go ahead and say she's going to win it. Stacey Plaskett, she's a representative from the Virgin Islands. So many women are showing up, and specifically, Cori Bush knew she was sent there with a mandate. You have also another candidate, Marilyn Strickland. She's a Democratic congresswoman from the state of Washington, another black woman. You understand? They know that they're being elected not for soft approaches. They're being elected to completely change the way the Democratic Party is going around doing things. So I long-winded that to say that the Democratic Party, the people who have been in it for 20, 30 years, they need to understand change is coming, like the Sam Cooke song say. And just not get out the way, but try to work with those people and understand they were once young too. And they were, they may look at those people and say, oh, they're radical. And Jim Clyburn said because some of the Democratic Party lost some seats because they were saying defund the police. And Cori Bush was like, nah, that's not what happened. That's not true because I ran on defund the police and it worked for me in my district. And it may not work for everybody else in their district, right? And majority, 99.9% of the people who ran for Congress on the Democratic side did not run on defund the police. So she's basically saying, I don't know what you're talking about. You're just making shit up now, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez chimed in and said, and I'll read this. This is a thread that she did. It's a long thread. I don't know if I'm going to go through all of it, but I might because I like these people. On her Twitter at AOC, she says, there are folks running around on TV blaming progressivism for Democratic underperformers. I was curious, so I decided to open the hood on struggling campaigns of candidates who are blaming progressives for their problems. Almost all had awful execution on digital, meaning she's basically saying that we're in a pandemic and, they should have focused. Usually they focused on the ground game, right? Going out, knocking on doors. That's where they spend a good 50, 60% of their time. And digital is probably 10, 15% of their time. And she's saying during the pandemic, that's where all of it should have been focused. And she goes on to say, on the investment across the board, some campaigns spent zero on digital the week before the elections. Others who spent did so in very poor ways. So she's going to say the week before an election, you can't not get out there and knock on doors as hard as you used to. You should have been spending it on digital, be it TV or internet. She goes on, if I spent only $12,000 on TV the week before an election and then blame others after, you'd ask questions. That's how it looks seeing this. Ideology plus messaging are the spicy convos a lot of people jump to, but sometimes it's about execution and technical capacity. Digital execution was not good. Polls were off. Ironically, DCCC, the Democratic Central Committee, banned the firms who are the best in the country at Facebook because they work with progressives, right? That's what she's saying. You have this party that's like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, you work with progressives, so we don't want to do it. So you're blaming them for the way they ran, but the head of the party, the organization, is not funding these progressive candidates. She goes on. Also, the decision to stop knocking on doors is Also, the decision to stop knocking doors is one people need to grapple with and analyze, right? So she basically is going on to say, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib never stopped and may very well have helped deliver a Biden presidency because of it, right? So before, when you never used to knock on doors and you'll spend 50, 60% of your time, it's a pandemic, You could still knock on doors, but there were ways to do it. And I know I said at the top, during a pandemic, you can't do it. But there was a lot of people that was not doing it. But what she's saying, in these battleground states, continue to do it because it helped. Battleground state being Michigan. She goes on, there are swing seat Democratic incumbents who co-sponsored the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, etc. And if not mistaken, every single one, and if I'm not mistaken, every single one won re-election. So the whole progressivism is bad argument just doesn't have any compelling evidence that I've ever seen. I'll stop there. But I want to say you cannot forget that you were once young. And if you feel, to the Jim Clyburns of the world who's been there 20, 30 years, if you feel that the younger generation of politicians are coming in your own party and they're missing something, reach out to them, have a meeting with them, see where they're coming from and say, hey, I'm not going to try to change your mind. I'm going to I was listening to, last night I was going to sleep, and they had Fox 5 News had not the cable news, the local news, which some people might argue is just as bad, but I just wanted something to hear to go to sleep. They had a clinical psychologist on there. And he said, in terms of talking about politics, you listen with the open mind. You don't listen to tell the person they're wrong. And I was like, I like that. Except if you're saying some shit that's completely racist and ignorant. It's like, oh, fuck, you're wrong. But you listen with an open mind. So Jim Clyburn, meet with the younger generation coming in and say, yo, I want to know you guys, you ladies and gentlemen, ideas for the party. Okay, let's see what we can do. We agree on this. We disagree on this. Let's work. As there's an old saying that goes, let's work on what we agree with and let's later on work on what we disagree on. Let's work on the easy stuff first. That's what can be done, right? So I just wanted to mention that. But, I went over like an hour. I didn't plan to do this episode for an hour. I really planned for like 45 minutes. But that's just how it goes, right? But what I really want to talk about is two things. I want to talk about what's going on in Tigray, Ethiopia. So I'll talk about that. And then I'm going to talk about it briefly because I just found out about it today, November 23rd, 2020. And I wanted to bring it to you guys' attention, right? So apparently what's happening in Ethiopia is this. And this is according to news reports I've read. This is what's going on. This is a New York Times article. Go check it out. There's genocide happening over there. It's never good. And I always say, you've heard me say before that, Black liberation, Black solidarity comes in not only focusing on America, it comes on focusing on Black people all around the world. Earlier this week, I saw that people in Brazil was having a protest because, of a Black man killed by police. And I was like, wow. Right? I was like, wow, that's, you know what I mean? This is according to Euronews. Protests erupt. And I just looked this up. I didn't plan to talk about this. I just remembered it. Protests erupt in Brazil after Black man beaten by supermarket security. Right? And that security guard is not a police officer, but he comes with the ideology of a police officer. He probably carries a gun, probably feels that he could rough people up, right? And the protest was sparked, according to this article, video showing that, I can't pronounce the name, is Joao Silveira Freitas, who was beaten by the guard outside of the supermarket. Now, I'll say this, there's nothing that man could have done that required you to beat him to death in the supermarket. Nothing, right? Due process, I'm just saying, right? So I often talk about Black solidarity. It's not only Black solidarity in America, it's around the world. I've had conversation with people and they say, we need to focus on our own. Our own who? In America? Right? And it's almost like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's Black people all around the world. So you only care about the Black people here? Well, you really don't care about Black people then. So anyway, what's going on? And I would argue, I don't like this New York Times article, but I don't know enough about it. I don't like the title. Why is Ethiopia at war with itself? I don't like it, but, it's a source that I'll use for right now. So the prime minister of Ethiopia is Abiy Ahmed, right? And he won the Nobel Peace Prize partly for making peace with Eritrea, right? ordered the start of a military offensive against Tigray on November 4th, right? So he had won the Nobel Peace Prize for making peace with Eritrea. And if Eritrea sounds familiar, it's where Nipsey Hussle family is from. So, you know, Armayas Ashkadam, if that sounds familiar. But Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, he ordered the start of a military offensive against Tigray on November 4th after accusing the region's ruling party of attacking a government defense post and trying to steal artillery and military equipment. And there's this is still reading from the article, there's a long similar feud between the federal government, Tigray, Ethiopia, and the powerful faction in control of Tigray has been bounding toward violent confrontation for months. The conflict comes as Ethiopia, Africa's second most populous nation, faces mounting economic and social challenges amid a volatile democratic transition. Right? So the little bit I've read and the little bit I've had to understand, because I haven't really had to unpack it, but I wanted to bring it to their attention. You have Tigray, who's facing a genocide, and I received a text from this about this from a very close homie, one of my homies. You know what I mean? My homie. When I say my homie, she my homie. You know what I mean? We super cool, road dog, all that good stuff, right? Mr. Abiy, the prime minister, said the government offensive on November 4 was in response to an attack by the Tigray People Liberation Front. Take that and think about this. How did that turn into Tigray genocide? How did that turn into turning off the internet? How did that turn into cutting off resources? All that stuff is happening, right? And I'm sitting here wondering to myself, this is an individual who's trying to put a grip, you know what I mean? Like he tried to reform, right? He pursued reforms, but Tigray resisted, and they said, yo, that shit doesn't apply to us. You can't do that to us. We're not having it. You understand? So he used this, like attack on a military base and housing a government. He used that as a pretense to say, this is what we're going to do. But as of right now, this is all I know. I'm not going to try to go any deeper like I'm some foreign expert or anything like that. But I just wanted to talk about this. Put this on your radar. Start looking for it. I did see an article over at Reuters.com. U.S. condemns Tigray forces attack on Eritrea. I'm not going to trust that a lot because, like I said, as far as what I'm understanding, it's a Tigray genocide. You're stopping the internet. Why you cut the internet off? We need the true story. My understanding is people can't contact their family. It's been weeks. And that right there, when you remember, go back to the top of the conversation when I talked about Tyson Food. When you start cutting off comments, you cutting dialogue off. You don't want the truth to come out. So that's that. But here's what I'm going to talk about lastly. And I'll try to spend about a short time talking about this. Here's the thing. The cool thing about this, I remember back in 2009, I was reading the Washington Post newspaper, and I remember reading about Valerie Jarrett being appointed to the Obama administration. I'll never forget, I was sitting down there with the paper in my lap, as I do every Sunday, and I saw Valerie Jarrett name, and I saw she went to school, and I saw the other people being appointed. I remember thinking to myself, why you always got to go to these Ivy League schools? Why you always got to go to, you know what I mean? Like, why somebody that went to a community college and then a small 4-year college, hint me, can't get in on in the White House and can't get in on the Democratic administration, right? But after the last 4 years, I've come to appreciate that you select someone to your administration, to your cabinet, that has dedicated their life to the work, which means although I have my eye on such a position, and it would be awesome, I will understand if I'm not chosen as a moment, right? Just thinking down the line, like if I say, oh, I want to be part of this administration, and and then I don't get selected, right? Let's say I go apply, do an interview and I don't get selected, I wouldn't be mad because I would understand that serious administrations want people that dedicate their entire life to the position they're holding, and that matters. Right. This may go back to that privilege thing I was talking about before, whereas this conversation may not be the same for the white privilege, but I've come to appreciate that. I understand after the last 4 years when you had random people, I'll pick on Ben Carson. When you had Ben Carson, a surgeon, he's a surgeon. They made him Secretary of HUD because he grew up in the ghetto. Like, how disrespectful is that of your skin color? But anyway, I say that to come to this point. And when I saw Valerie Jarrett being appointed, I held that belief because I didn't understand things. And sometimes you have to see bullshit to appreciate the roses, right? And now I appreciate the roses. And this brings me to my point. The Biden-Harris administration is now starting to name their cabinet members. And so far, the nominees for Secretary of State is Antony Blinken. He will be nominated as Secretary of State. That his name is out. Excuse me, not out. Like this is who they're going for. This is not speculation. It's according to BuildBackBetter.com. He served as Deputy Secretary of the Department of State during the Obama-Biden administration. The nation's second highest ranking diplomat has previously held top foreign affairs posts on Capitol Hill, in the White House, and in the State Department, right? So I would go through his entire resume, but that's unnecessary. You can go to BuildBackBetter.com. Also, you have Alejandro Mayorkas. He's been nominated for Secretary of Homeland Security. If confirmed, will be the first immigrant and Latino to lead the Department of Homeland Security. He served as Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security under the Obama-Biden administration. We have Avril Haines, Director. She's being nominated for the Director of the National Intelligence. Avril Haines, former Principal Deputy National Security Advisor to President Barack Obama and legal advisor to the National Security Council. She will be the first woman to serve as deputy. She was the first woman to serve as Deputy Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Then you have Linda Thomas Greenfield. She will be nominated to U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Black woman. She's a 35-year veteran of the U.S. Foreign Service who has served on 4 continents. Wow, there's 7 continents. She served on almost half of them, right? Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of African Affairs under the Obama-Biden administration. Served in diplomatic positions for the U.S. for Liberia, Switzerland, Pakistan, Kenya, the Gambia, Nigeria, and Jamaica. Awesome. Linda Thomas Greenfield. Then you have Jake Sullivan. He will be nominated to the National Security Advisor position. Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor to the Vice President Joe Biden and Director of Policy Planning at the State Department during the Obama administration. Deputy Chief of Staff to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Then you have, I don't know about this one, former Secretary, John Kerry is the former Secretary of State, right? He was a Secretary of the Department of State. He will be nominated to the Special Presidential Envoy for Climate. He signed the Paris Climate Agreement on behalf of the United States in 2015, and he was able to sign that because he was the Secretary of the Department of State. So he's able to do that. He launched a bipartisan organization with the goal of reaching net zero carbon in the U.S. by 2050. And that's a real goal. Prior to this current administration, that was a goal that, as close as we get to 2050, we wouldn't even be thinking of oil. It would be like, we'll just get off of oil because that's a thing of yesterday. He was the 68th United States Secretary of State under President Obama. All right. So that's the rundown so far. It's my understanding come tomorrow, Tuesday, November 24, 2020, they will be listing more nominees. But I just want to say this. I want to spend some time talking about this. And I want to say, deep down inside, I feel like this. I did not vote for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris for, them to be appointing Obama holdovers or Clinton holdovers. And what I mean by that is this. I don't want to see Larry Summers. I don't want to see, I forgot the guy's name. I can see his name. Larry Summers. I can't remember the guy name for my life, right? I don't want to see that guy. There was a report that Rahm Emanuel was going to be one of those people. That got shut down real quick. People started being like, what? Hell no. This is over CNN.com. Rahm Emanuel under consideration to become Biden's transportation secretary. And I say a fuck no, right? Because if you don't know that Rahm Emanuel's story, first and foremost, he's an asshole. If you go to Obama's, one of Obama's dinner, the correspondence dinner, where he talked about Rahm Emanuel, and one of the jokes they had that his middle finger was like chopped off, like I guess an accident, and they said that rendered him mute. So basically, he would run around sticking his middle finger up to a lot of people. That tells you he's an asshole. Because sidebar, I don't understand the middle finger thing. I really don't. If you ever show me your middle finger, like, you know, I don't understand why people do that. Like, that's a sign language thing. Like, you be in traffic and somebody do that, I'm always like, what do you mean? I know what it means, but I'm like, why the middle finger? Why just not say it, right? It feels better. But anyway, Rahm Emanuel, he was the mayor, right? So he was running for a second term. And Laquan McDonald, that video of Laquan McDonald being shot and killed by a police officer, Rahm Emanuel held on to that video. Because remember, when you're the mayor, like you're over, for all intents and purposes, you supervise the police, right? So, you know, Rahm Emanuel held on to that video until after the election, because basically he wanted to get because if that video came out, he know he was not going to get reelected. And obviously being elected the mayor of Chicago, you got elected by majority black people. Right. And remember I read majority black people showed up and, you know, saved this election. I did 2-part episodes on this. So if Joe Biden is to nominate this Obama, you know, holdover, I'm using the wrong term, holdover, but I say that to say, stop bringing people back that, you know, these people were awesome, right? Because they're all qualified on whatever. And this is just the beginning. There will be so more cabinet positions. There will be so many more administrative positions. So I just listed six people out of, you know, many more that can possibly be. So it's not, but what we do know is we don't want people that didn't get it before. So one of the big things I remember back in like 2010, 2011 with Arnie Duncan, he was the Secretary of Education under President Obama. And he had no like school experience. He wasn't a teacher. He wasn't a principal. He wasn't a school superintendent. None of that. But he was able to be the Secretary of Education. Now, to be fair, whether you have all that experience, you will have a lot of people that will not agree with you. But at minimum, they can say, you were in them streets with us. You know what it's like to dirty your elbow, get your hands dirty, all that good stuff, right? But what we won't tolerate from a Biden-Harris administration is more of the same. You said build back better. You didn't say build back like before. This is not a criticism. This is a critique. This is an overview of so far so good. When I first saw these people, I was looking for the black woman. I'm not going to lie. Then I was looking for the Latino. I'm not going to lie. Right? And when I saw Alejandro Mayorkas, right, I was like, oh, first immigrant Latino. Check. Right? Then I saw the black woman. Check. And that tells me that, okay, because this isn't out of my mouth. Joe Biden said his administration will look like America, and America doesn't look like white male. You understand? So it's important that as this continue, I think of Debbie Haaland. She is a congresswoman from New Mexico. I think of her every time I hear any talk about administration secretaries, cabinet secretaries. I think about her all the time. Deb Haaland, right? As I said, she's a representative out of New Mexico 1st District. She was elected in 2019, right? You know, that blue wave. I think of her like she needs a spot. And why does she need a spot? She's Native American. I believe she's the first Native American elected to Congress. Think about that. I want you to think about that. We're on her ancestors' land, like literally her. And remember, I used the word literally at the beginning. I'm using it again. We're on her ancestors' land. I want to repeat that. On her ancestors' land. And she is the first Native American elected to Congress. How disrespectful, right? And the only way the only way to make that whole is to make sure she or the like gets a position in the Biden-Harris administration. Because why? We want the administration, and he said it, we want it to look like America, right? That's what Joe Biden said. We want it to look like America. I stumbled because there was two things I wanted to talk about, but I forgot. So I'm gonna have to hold it till the next episode. So right. So that's what we want. That's where my criticism is coming from, right? I want not just one black woman as cabinet secretary. Yes, we got a VP elect black woman, which is awesome, by the way. I don't think y'all understand how powerful this is. Like I feel like it's gonna set in as time come on, but it's powerful. I don't just want one black woman at the helm. I want two black women secretaries, cabinet secretaries. You know what I mean? Like I want that. I want it. You know, my great niece, she's 3 years old. I want it to be normal for her to see women in leadership at the highest office. I want that. I want that to be a thing. I want it to be attainable. And we all should want it to be attainable, right? And you have, I'm sure he will hold to that promise. But I saw this list came out and I was like, I have to talk about this today. It's very important. Black people got you there. Joe Biden, you said that your cabinet will look like America. I believe you, but I just wanted to talk about this, and I want to be able to have this conversation with people who listen to the podcast and let them know over the next 4 years, you know, if I continue this podcast, I'm going to be holding them accountable, and I'm going to be talking about stuff like this. I wanted to talk about this bill. No, damn it, I'm going to talk about it. You know what I mean? Heck no. There's this article over at Mother Jones. I'll slide this in. This is the last thing I end with, right? I was looking at C-SPAN, and they was having a diversity and inclusion segment, and they talk about black farmers. Black farmers have been they were talking about black farmers, and there's this bill, and it's over at motherjones.com. This bill came up. Black farmers have been robbed of land. A new bill will give them a quantum leap towards justice. And Senator Cory Booker, he's quoted as saying in this article, this is the Black Farmer Civil Rights Act of 2020, and it's long overdue. I highly suggest you read this article. Highly suggest. I'll say this about it, right? Just give you a little back history about it. Post Reconstruction, pre-Reconstruction, newly freed black people would have land, right? That's why you have Rutherford B. Hayes, Samuel J. Tilden. I talked about that in previous episode. I went to the high school. Black people were awarded these lands, right? Not awarded. They were, here, this is your land. It's all yours. Rutherford B. Hayes, Samuel J. Tilden, the election comes. Congress basically, talk about that middle finger those black people and say, you know what? We're going to give the election to Rutherford B. Hayes. Rutherford B. Hayes comes in, and one of his agreements, one of the compromises was we're going to pull the troops out of the South that were protecting federal troops that were protecting newly freed slaves on their land, enslaved on their land. So that started to happen, right? It's been happening before. I talked about Native Americans. Stealing land is what America does, right? So that's been happening generations upon generation. And black farmers, and this is talked about in the 1619 Project. Nicole Hannah-Jones and others, they put together in the New York Times, the 1619 Project. This talked about taking their land, right? It may be, oh, you owe this here. Oh, you owe that here. Oh, during the early 1900s, they'll run you off your land and, come in and kill you. And now they take that land and, little conniving, crooked bullshit they would do. So more and more black farmers numbers kept dropping. And the USDA, it was this guy. Oh man, I want to get his name because he had me reading this because he was so thorough in what he was saying, right? But more and more, there were tactics being used to drive black farmers away from their land. And as this kept happening, they lose their land. the USDA will do nothing about it. And this guy, Thomas Mitchell, a law professor at Texas A&M, 2020 MacArthur Fellow. And he one of the things he said, I quote this article, he said, effectively precluded African Americans from participating. So, talk about that transfer of land, transfer of generational property. It wasn't able to happen. And one of the things he said in there that the USDA is amongst groups is known as the last plantation, right? The last upholder of the plantation mentality in the federal government, because they're complicit in this what happens to black farmers. So therefore, this bill right here, the Black Farmers Act, as Coach saying, this is the Black Farmers Civil Rights Act of 2020. This will make it whole again. Give protection to these black farmers so they won't lose their land. The name of the bill is the Justice for Black Farmers Act, set to be released November 30, would mount a long-delayed federal effort to reverse the, quote, destructive forces that were unleashed upon black farmers over the past century, one of the dark corners of shame in American history. And this is by Senator Cory Booker, right? And these are the things, I'm going to bring all of this together. I'm going to put all of this together for you. These are the things we get when, and I'm going to talk about this again on next episode because I think it was way too important to let go. But these are the things that when you elect John Ossoff, Raphael Warnock, these are the things that can happen. These are the things that can be better, right? These are the bills that can be passed. These are the opportunities that will be laid for communities, black and brown communities that want to pass on generational property can do so, right? And I would argue there was one, Mike Espy, he just ran for a Senate seat in Mississippi and he lost. Mike Espy, he was once the USDA secretary and he was on the Bill Clinton, right? He's been around for a long time. Pretty cool, smooth talking guy, knows his politics, right? So never been a black woman, right? And if you're going to appoint somebody to that position, hopefully their career in the USDA, they understand the disproportionate way black and brown people are affected by USDA policies, and hopefully these things can happen. So the Democratic Party gets a Senate majority, a House majority. These are things that can happen. Now, that's the American voters saying to Congress, there's a mandate that this is what we want done. And that's how we get that done. Be it from, farming, education, the Justice and Policing Act, all these things, clean air. Don't forget, Flint still has murky waters, right? Drinking water. A lot of people in Flint still can't drink from the faucet. They're still letting that water. So all these things, that's what can happen if the Democratic Party gets a majority. From that all the way up to the coronavirus pandemic. You understand? So think about that. Let your friends, your ex-boyfriends, your ex-girlfriends, your ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever it is, let them know. Your foes, if it's safe to do so, let them know there's an election happening in Georgia on January 5th. It's a runoff. Let them request the absentee ballot. There's no reason to miss elections anymore. You could literally vote from home now, right? So wear your mask, wash your hands, think of the people who are less fortunate. If you have the resources to provide to them, I would really ask that you do so. It would be beneficial to the world. You will feel good about yourself when you sit down and you enjoy your meal. And as I told you at the top of the episode, there will be no episode next Monday, November 30th. I believe the next time I'll be back, it's I believe that was December 6th. Come on, man. I got to get the calendar up here. The next time I'll be back is December 7th. But until then, happy holiday. Drive safe. Hopefully you're not flying. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Hip Hop Generation, we
I'm
out.
not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us.